Hello everyone, my name is Eri Burgos. Welcome to On Here the Interview. Today we have the privilege to interview a former creative director of Trevor Sorbet and now the present creative director at Davines. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the interview about the journey of Tom Connor. Tom, let's talk about your beginning. How did this journey started?
Yeah, sure. My beginning in hairdressing was from a very young age. My parents had a salon, so from as young as I can remember, I was running around the salon, and then as I got older, going to the salon after school, and obviously when it was time to start to want a little bit of pocket money in my pocket, my dad said that you had to work at the salon. So I started working at the salon, sweeping the floors, and I just liked the atmosphere. I liked kind of conversing with people that were a little bit older than me that I felt were cool and they were into different music than people my age were into, and they were wearing different clothes, and it kind of it interested me from that side of things. But then once I began to attend training evenings and I began to actually pick up a comb and start to move hair, it held my interest more than anything ever had. And I think I'm somebody that's either all in something or all out of something. I don't really just like anything. I'm either obsessed with it or I have no interest in it at all. And from early on, it caught my attention, and it made me for the first time think, okay, this is something that I could see myself doing when I leave school. And then I began to attend a couple of smaller seminars and hair shows to kind of see a little bit the wider industry. And my dad got me a ticket to watch a Trevor Sorbet one-man show. And I would have been 15, 16, and went to watch Trevor on stage, and then was blown away and thought, okay, that's what I want to do.
Buddy, where do the inspiration came from for the John Tom Connor?
Where do I find inspiration? It's the $6 million question, right? I don't really have a set source. I'm just very, very aware of my surroundings, or I try to be. And I kind of have a rule that if something catches my attention, even how vague it may seem or how inconspicuous it may seem, I don't kind of question why it's caught my attention. I just recognise that it has, and I'll either take a photograph of it or make a note of it, and I'll put it in a file. And it could be an image, it could be something quite literal that I like a texture or a colour of, or it could be something more abstract like a line in a song that I could maybe use in a show one day, or a funny joke, or something I overhear in a bar that makes me laugh. It's all of those little those little unique things that you experience on a day-to-day basis. They've triggered something in your mind for a reason, I believe. So if something makes me look twice, I make sure I look a third time.
Who did Tom Connor look after as someone to follow?
Whose work did I look at to follow? Well, as I mentioned before, obviously seeing Trevor Sorbet on stage from a very young age blew my mind, because I didn't know that side of the industry existed. I didn't know that by being a hairdresser you got the opportunity to go on stage and kind of share your creative ideas and your creative work with your peers. I didn't understand that was part of the job, and so from first seeing that, I suppose that was the first thing that triggered me, that I started to follow. And then beyond that, hairdressers. I went through a lot of phases. I mean, I read the Vidal Sassoon autobiography, Sorry I Kept You Waiting Madam, the original one, when I was doing my training. And then for a long time, like I think most people that have been in hairdressing, I was obsessed with Sassoon and Roger Thompson and the heritage of haircutting and that side of things. And then as I kind of progressed through my training and qualified, I started to look at how to break those rules, and after feeling like I'd learned a certain amount of technique, I suppose I started to rebel a little bit, and I was looking at the likes of Guido Palau and Eugene Suleiman. Certainly Guido in his first book, Heads, the way that he did something just that necessarily didn't just make an aesthetic image, but it spoke for a culture and what was happening in culture at that time, whether that be music or film or on the streets. It really kind of, that book, even when you look back now, really spoke for who those people were at that time. And that, I suppose that was the first time that I thought, okay, for me to remember a hair image, it has to go beyond just being beautiful aesthetically. There's many beautiful images, but I think the ones that live on are the ones that mean something beyond that. And I think that's true of anything. That can be true of a movie or a piece of music. Some great songs are the ones that meant something beyond the catchy tune, you know. And I think certainly Guido Palau in that first book, for me, it totally changed my perspective when I saw that for the first time.
Tom, how do you describe the responsibility of being the creative director, first at Trevor Sorbie and now at Davines? And how do you feel at that moment when Davines chose you to fill the void left by your predecessors, Tim Harley and Angelo Seminara?
How would I describe the responsibility of being an art director? It's a big responsibility, partly because you're carrying on the heritage of the company and the people that have worked there and the great hairdressers that have worked there in the past. So whether it was at Trevor Sorbie or now with Davines, it's a tremendous responsibility because you work for those companies because you admire them and you admire what they stand for. So you want to do them justice, but you also want to do yourself justice. And as most people watching this maybe know, is when your job is to be creative, or when you're fortunate enough that part of hairdressing becomes your full-time job, i.e. like shoots and shows, that's a very nice position to be in. But you normally only produce your best work and the work that you're capable of when you're very free. And you're able to take risks and you're able to experiment. But when you're fortunate enough to be in this position, you're meant to be good at your job, right? So the window for mistakes and the window for, okay, I tried that but maybe it didn't work, is very small, because there's a tremendous financial investment that goes into most projects. There's a tremendous reputation, as I just mentioned, that's gone before you, and the current reputation of the company that you need to respect. So it's important that you have to play those two things. You need to not lose that bravery and that kind of inquisitiveness in your work, but at the same time you need to make sure that everything you produce is of a certain level. So there's a big responsibility that comes with being an art director. And then it goes beyond producing a beautiful image. You know, there's many art directors that can produce a pretty image, but does that image meet the commercial needs? Does it meet the educational needs? Does it meet the aesthetic needs of the company? And then you need to kind of collaborate with a lot of different departments. You need to be a good collaborator from the communications department, the marketing department, the research and development department in the laboratory. All these different departments play a role in a company achieving success. And from an art director point of view and a hair aesthetic point of view, that's just another jigsaw to the puzzle, right? So it's always important to respect that everyone has a job and everyone's role is of equal importance, because without one of those roles, the whole jigsaw falls to pieces. So it's a big responsibility, but it's a very enjoyable responsibility, especially when you've all worked together and something comes off and you love it. It's a great feeling, and I think that is why we do it, right? It's that collaboration with the people that inspire you, and hopefully you inspire them, and then you can pull off something that maybe shows something different to the industry that maybe they haven't seen before.
Tom, according to you, which other form of art should an individual look after to help him become a great hairdresser?
Who should other people look at for inspiration? I'll tell you two really great hairdressers that I love. A guy from New York called Mustafa Yenaz, or I think he's German but he lives in New York. He does a lot of editorial work, but he has a real skill with his hands, but he also has amazing taste. And I think you don't often find those things. You'll find sometimes people with great skill, but maybe they don't kind of, the taste isn't where it should be. Or vice versa, you'll find an editorial hairdresser that's got beautiful taste and works with great models and great photographers, but maybe the technique isn't there. And Mustafa has the top level of both of those two things, in my opinion, and I always enjoy looking at his work. And then someone else who might even be my favourite hairdresser ever is Christian, the Dutch hairdresser, again based in New York. I think the freedom that he approaches his work with, and his knowledge of how to make someone look beautiful, and the shape and the form of the head, and how the hairstyles that he creates fit a person are so unique. I've never quite seen somebody work like him, or I can always see when it's his work. And so I think those two, Christian and Mustafa Yanaz, I would encourage anyone to go and take a look at their work for some inspiration.
Amigo, what would be your closing message for the new generation?
An inspiring message for an up-and-coming hairdresser. I would say, someone asked me this the other day, or someone said, "What are you proud of?" And I suppose the answer I gave then could give this answer. I think that the days of having to do a set, trodden path to having some success in hairdressing are gone. And I think partly it becomes with social media, the fact that anyone can take a snap of their work and upload it, so it's much more democratic that way. Maybe harder to get cut through because there's more work, but the point that I'm trying to make is you don't have to follow a path of, okay, I'm going to go and assist someone and then hopefully make my way up in the session world and eventually get my own show. Or I'm going to enter this award and then win this many trophies on a cabinet behind me so that eventually I get some opportunities. I don't think that is the case anymore, and that's something that's not a path that I've followed. I tried to walk my own path. And I think if your work is original enough and is true enough to you and is really, really making a statement, and you can be comfortable with the fact that not everyone has to like it. In fact, some people won't like it, and that's good. And if you can find comfort in that and be really, really brave with what you do, you can have some success. And I don't think that maybe was always possible. But now, as I had with the internet and the much more democratic way of getting your work out there, that is. If you're saying something and you're saying something that's true, you'll find an audience. So stick to what you believe, and stick to the aesthetic that really truly makes you happy and excited to get out of bed and go to work in the morning.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, everyone. My name is Eddie Burgos. This is On Hair, and see you next time.